Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan, and today I have my October TBR video for you. In October, I intend to read 10 novels. Now, whether or not I will get to all 10 of these is subject for debate. We'll see what actually happens. I will try my best to get to all of them, but that doesn't always happen. Some months I reach it and do even more, and some months I absolutely do not reach my goal, like August. But I am going to try, and so we'll see what happens here. I have 2 new releases and then 8 books that aren't new releases. So the 2 new releases I don't have copies of, so I'll have to do those. I'll put the image up on the screen. The first new release I'll talk about is The City of Marble and Blood, written by Howard Andrew Jones. I have reviewed the first book and really enjoyed it, and I've done interviews with Howard Andrew Jones on the series that you can check out on the channel. They've been delightful. I did one that was just a Skype interview when the first book came out, and then I did a second interview at DragonCon. I don't know if at the time that this video goes out, if that video has come out, but it either is out or will be out very soon. But regardless, The City of Marble and Blood is the second book in his Chronicles of Hanuvar series. It is or Hanuvar as he pronounces it. It is intended to be like a 6-ish book, 5 to 6 book series. And the first book came out in August. The second book comes out in October. So they're really quick back-to-back releases. And the first book was one of my favorite fantasy reads of the year. It was new and inventive. It had this kind of concept of being like a short story collection that's all tied together. Like each chapter is standalone, but adds a little bit to the overall narrative and propels the story forward. And I'm really interested to see where the story goes in book 2. And so that's my first of the 2 new releases. The second of the 2 new releases is a Star Wars book, and that is Star Wars Crimson Climb by E.K. Johnston. E.K. Johnston wrote one of my favorite Star Wars YA books, Ahsoka. She also wrote some of my least favorite Star Wars YA books, which are the Padme trilogy. So she's got kind of a mixed record. So we'll see whether this tips the scale at all in her favor. This is a story featuring one of my favorite characters to come out of Solo, Kira. I've always believed that we should have gotten a Solo 2, but I don't necessarily believe it will happen. I know that they're working on a Lando series, or whether it's a Lando movie now. We'll see what happens with that. But I've always believed that we should have gotten a continuation of that story, seeing what Kira did and things like that. This book will not serve as a continuation necessarily, but it will provide some backstory on Kira's character, some of her time between when she gets separated from Han and her time when she is reunited with Han, only to be later separated again. Wow, she goes through a journey there. So that book is coming out in the month of October, and I will intend to read it on release day and provide my review shortly thereafter. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the other 2 Star Wars books on my to-be-read pile this month, and those are 2 of the Fate of the Jedi books. If you've been following along on the channel, you'll know that I recently bought the Fate of the Jedi series. I found 8 of the 9 books at one bookstore for a really great price, and I was like, I'm going to get all of them, and I did, and I was like, well, I want to read them now because I'm really excited because it's the one major series. I have like a standalone here, or a trilogy here of the EU left to read, but this is the final big series left, and so I bought all 9 books now, and I am going to read all of them. As of this recording, I've read 2, and I'm just about to read the 3rd book, and so I'm right on schedule of where I need to be to read these books. I want to have the final book done by the end of 2023, by the end of December. And so books 4 and 5 are on my October TBR, and that would be Backlash by Aaron Alston, and Allies by Christy Golden. Certainly the longest book of hers that I own. Wow, it's over 400 pages. Dude doesn't sound long, but for Christy Golden, that's like a tome of a novel. She usually writes books that are under 300 pages. So I have both of these books to read. I'm very excited. I'm loving this series so far. I may have a new favorite character or a new couple of favorite characters in this series, so we'll see what I think. My reviews for the first book should either be out or will be out very, very soon, and the second book will come out soon. The second review will be soon thereafter. My next book to read this month is a John Grisham book. That is The King of Torts. I don't really know much about this book. All I know is it's John Grisham, and I love reading about John Grisham. His books are just superb. His way of writing legal situations is just fantastic and entertaining. I'm always entertained by his books. There are a few ones that are moderate enjoyment, but some of them are just superb. So that'll be that book. That's really the only non-genre book I have. Normally I try to get one non-genre book in, and that's what that is this month. I also have another fantasy novel, The Steel Assassin by Terry Brooks. This is a fantasy novel, the third book in the Fall of Shannara series. So I am just about to wrap up not only the Fall of Shannara, but the whole Shannara series as a whole, as this is the final series in that. And I'm very excited to read this book and find out what happens to certain characters, because boy did the last book, The Scar Invasion, leave on a cliffhanger. And I just read that book, and that review should come out soon. Next, I have some Star Trek books to read. The first one is a novelization by J.M. Dillard, which is the Generations novelization. This one's super short. I think this is only 250 pages. Yeah, it's about 248 pages. So it's a very short novelization, but I always like the little tidbits that we learn, and it's fun getting to read some entertaining stories in this format. This will be the first novelization of the Next Gen crew that I'll get to read about. And I've really enjoyed some of the novelizations. I think the novelizations for Search for Spock and The Undiscovered Country were amazing. And then I thought the novelizations for the motion picture and Wrath of Khan were okay. And then I thought the novelization for The Final Frontier was fine. It wasn't anything spectacular. So we'll see where this one lines up. I'm hoping on the spectacular side, but we'll see. The other Star Trek book I intend to read this month is Star Trek ASingular Destiny by Keith R.A. DeCandido. And this one is actually a signed book. Yes, this is a signed book by Mr. DeCandido. And this is the book that comes almost immediately after the events of the Destiny trilogy. If you're a Star Trek fan that likes books, you probably know about the Destiny trilogy. That was the big trilogy that just, took all the characters, put them in a box, and shook them up, and then threw them all over the galaxy, and killed some of the characters, and sent others off on different quests and adventures. Anyway, that was the big turning point in Star Trek literature, was the Destiny trilogy. And this book is an immediate follow-up to that, ASingular Destiny, and I'm very interested to see what happens in the book. I'm kind of sad this is his last novel that he wrote in terms of release dates for Star Trek. I hope they invite him back. But my written reviews for both of these books will be up on Roku Depot whenever I read them. But my video review will also be up here. I also have some science fiction novels that aren't part of the Star Wars or Star Trek universe. One of them is also kind of a tie-in book, though, which is kind of funny, which is Sisterhood of Dune. It is the first book in the Schools of Dune trilogy. Some people have told me to wait to read the Schools trilogy until I've read the Butlerian Jihad trilogy, and I've thought about it, but I don't own the Butlerian Jihad trilogy, and I wanted to read this because this is supposed to be what they are adapting the TV show for, and so I think I'll still enjoy it. I don't always read everything in order when it comes to the Dune universe. I'll try to read this book, and then if I enjoy it, I have books 2 and 3, and I really enjoy the way Kevin and Brian write in the Dune universe. I loved the House Atreides trilogy with House Atreides, House Harkonnen, and House Carino. That was some of my favorite science fiction storytelling, some of my favorite tie-in storytelling. I think that they absolutely do a great job with this universe, and I know that some people disagree with that, but I love the way they write the characters and write the world building, so I'm interested to see how I view this, because this one won't have any of the characters that I'm familiar with. This will be an entirely new set of characters. So that's that book. The final book on my October TBR is a Bane science fiction book. If you know my channel, you probably know about Bane, and that's The Chaplains War. This is a novel by Brad R. Torgerson, who is a former military guy, as a lot of the Bane people are, and wrote science fiction, and this is his debut novel for Bane and his debut novel, and I'm really fascinated by Torgerson. He's just a fascinating individual. And so I'll try to read this book. This one's not terribly long. This one's probably only about 300 pages, 350 pages, so this should be a fairly quick read. But that is my October 2023 TBR. If you have read any of these books, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And if you're interested in reading any of these books, let me know that as well. But until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.